From dreams to destiny, her epic journey to Riyadh for the final tournament of the season. The sun dipped low over Riyadh's horizon, painting the desert sky in hues of gold and crimson. The air was alive with anticipation, the kind that only surfaces when greatness stands on the edge of destiny. Inside the grand arena, lights shimmered across the immaculate courts, where the world's best were about to converge for one last battle of the season. Among them stood her, the young woman whose journey was more than a tale of competition. It was a saga of heart, resilience, and unrelenting belief. She had dreamed of this moment for years, long before the WTA Finals banners fluttered in the Saudi breeze, before the cameras turned her name into a global headline. This, Riyadh, the final stage, was where her season, her sacrifices, and her story would reach their crescendo, the beginning of a dream. Her story began not under stadium lights, but beneath the quiet dawns of her hometown, where she first gripped a tennis racket almost too large for her tiny hands. The courts were cracked, the nets sagged, and the sun was unforgiving, but her dreams never melted under that heat. Each morning, she'd rise before the world awakened, her father's old car waiting at the corner to take her to the court. The journey was long, the tires worn thin, but to her, every bump in the road felt like progress. She wasn't born into privilege or surrounded by luxury training camps. Her weapon was hunger, the unquenchable kind that refuses to be silenced. Her idols, Serena, Sharapova, Osaka, were stars she studied from afar, their matches replayed endlessly on a flickering screen. And every time she missed a shot or lost a match, she whispered to herself, "Someday I'll stand where they stand." It wasn't arrogance. It was prophecy, rising through the storm. The path to Riyadh was never paved in gold. It was forged in the fire of struggle. There were tournaments where she lost in the first round, tears hidden behind polite smiles for the cameras. There were sleepless nights when injuries whispered doubt into her ears, and mornings where pain tried to convince her to quit. But she never did. When the rankings didn't move fast enough, when critics questioned her place, when she felt invisible in a sport that celebrated the loudest, she trained harder. Each setback became a chapter in her manual of survival. She learned to silence the noise. She learned to trust her process. From clay to hard court, from grass to indoor battles, she carved her presence not through luck, but through sheer will. Slowly, the world began to notice. A few victories turned into streaks, streaks into titles, and titles into a statement. She was no longer a rising star. She was a threat. Her breakout season arrived like a storm, the year that changed everything. The 2025 season was her canvas, and she painted it with brilliance. From Melbourne's electric atmosphere to Paris's clay symphony, from the humid nights in Singapore to the roaring cheers in New York, she fought with fire and grace. Each match carried a rhythm, a dance between discipline and daring. There was a moment in Wimbledon where she clawed her way back from 2 to 5 down in the deciding set. A match point save, then another, and then, with one final forehand winner that kissed the baseline, she screamed, not in victory, but in release. It was that moment when the tennis world finally understood. She wasn't playing just to win. She was playing to belong. Her ranking soared, sponsors lined up, and the once underdog now found herself seated among giants. And as the season neared its end, the invitation arrived, the one she dreamed of since her first serve, the WTA Finals. Location, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Date, the last dance of season. Her name was now written among the elite 8 of women's tennis. The journey to Riyadh. The flight to Riyadh wasn't just a trip. It was a pilgrimage. As she boarded the plane, memories rushed through her like a reel. The first trophy she ever held. The time she cried alone in locker rooms. The laughter shared with her team after hard-fought wins. She pressed her forehead against the window, watching clouds roll beneath her. Somewhere between altitude and silence, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. I will give them everything I have left. When the plane touched down, Riyadh greeted her with golden warmth. The city glittered with a mix of tradition and modernity, a perfect reflection of what this tournament symbolized, the merging of history and progress. Every billboard, every banner seemed to hum with possibility. Her name beside the sport's greatest felt surreal, almost like stepping into her own dream. At the practice courts, She hit ball after ball, each strike echoing across the Arabian night. Her coach watched silently, sensing something different in her aura. Not the pressure of expectation, but the calm of readiness. This wasn't just another tournament. This was destiny, delivered, the stage of queens. The WTA Finals in Riyadh was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The stadium was an architectural masterpiece, glowing like a jewel in the desert. The crowd, vibrant, international, and electric, filled every seat with anticipation. The world's cameras zoomed in, and the commentators whispered her name with reverence. Every match here was a war disguised as a ballet. The top 8 women, each a champion, each hungry, each unstoppable. Her first match was against a rival she'd never beaten before. The rallies were brutal, power against power, heart against heart. And yet, the crowd exploded. Momentum shifted. The tide turned. And in the final set, when her opponent faltered just slightly, she surged. Match point now hers. One swing away from immortality. The rally began deep shots, fast exchanges, and then came the opening. She stepped in and unleashed a forehand that carved through the air like destiny itself. Winner. Game. Set. Match. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as fireworks painted the Riyadh sky above her. The trophy, heavy and gleaming, was placed in her hands. And as she looked at her reflection in the golden surface, she saw not just an athlete, but every version of herself that had ever dreamed of this moment. Beyond the crown, the world called it her greatest victory. But for her, it was something else entirely. It was closure. It was proof. It was destiny fulfilled. In her post-match speech, she didn't talk about power or rankings. She spoke about perseverance, about believing even when the world doesn't. She thanked her team, her fans, her country, and most of all, the little girl who never stopped dreaming. As the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly dispersed, she stood alone on the court for a while, taking it all in. The echoes of cheers faded into the Riyadh night, replaced by a serene silence. She smiled, not because she had won, but because she had arrived. Epilogue. The dream lives on. The morning after her victory, she watched the sunrise from her hotel balcony. The city below shimmered with promise. Somewhere, a new girl was waking up, picking up her first tennis racket, daring to dream. And she knew her journey had only just begun. Because dreams don't end when destiny is reached. They evolve. And for her, from the cracked courts of her childhood to the glittering stage of Riyadh, the message was clear. When your dreams are built on faith, fight, and fire, destiny will always find its way to you. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Till next time.